devlog number 2. Welcome. I actually recorded this entire thing earlier and it didn't actually work correctly because I have a giant screen. I know, woe is me. I'm used to running in 5120 by 1440, like ultra wide. And this is my second screen, which is a smaller 1080p screen. And it, the way that Godot works in terms of embedding the game and trying to render everything, it just didn't work the first time, so you couldn't see any of the game at all. So live and learn. We're going to try number 2 here. Um, Again, this is devlog number 2. 6 months into the project, I made a whopping 2 devlogs. For those that don't know me, my name is Frank, and I'm working on a bartending life sim RPG business sim um, sort of mashup of a game with some physics games, and it's got some fun little elements. I hope people will enjoy it, but it's based roughly on my life as a bartender in New York and being a part of the bar community for 20 years, almost 20 years now. And it's based kind of on 2007 era East Village, New York, where the cocktail renaissance really got its start and spread out throughout the rest of the city and then throughout the rest of the country. So this is based on my life, but there's not a whole lot of story. I kind of just want people to sort of make their own story. I'm really into emergent gameplay, so there's a lot of influence here from RimWorld, from Kenshi. I mean, obviously there's no violence like Kenshi, but just a sort of emergent storytelling where the gameplay itself, the story is up to you and how you play the game. There's no right or wrong way to play it. You do what you want. There's if you want to automate things, you can. If you want to make more of a story and just wander around, meet people, meet other bartenders, you can. If you're not interested in the mini games, then skip them. Yeah, just kind of leave it open ended. But today, just to keep things a little more focused, I wanted to just show you guys the. People always ask me, is there an enemy in your game? Like, who are the enemies? Kind of one of the jokes is that the customers are the enemies, like the punchers, I call them, kind of a British term. Here's a punter controller, for instance. So for those that don't know, a controller is typically like you have a player controller and it handles all of like the movement of your character, for instance. So the punter controller in this case handles the AI for all of the customers. And you can see this is actually one of the larger scripts. 725 lines. I guess it's not that bad, but a lot of this is abstracted out, I guess is what you call it. It has helper functions that live in other scripts that deal with stuff, and it has what's called a state machine. So if you stay on for after the gameplay demo here for the dev talk stuff, we'll talk a little bit about what a state machine is, because I never knew one existed until 6 months ago when I started this project. So they're great though. Fantastic. Yeah. So without further ado, I want to show you the only enemy in the game, which is played by me. I'm not going to show you the tutorial, but in the tutorial you'll see me a lot because I'm the guy who trains you. You're the newbie, and I've lost my love of the game, I guess, and I'm not a very good bar manager. I abandon you with a pretty crappy bar. It's up to you to make it better. And then I abandon you and I become a health inspector, which is the actual enemy of every single bartender in New York City. So that is the only enemy, and so you're going to see me here in a second. So let's play the game and see what happens here. Hopefully it works, because I'm not used to running it in the Godot editor here. I'm pretty new to Godot. I'm brand new to Godot. I'm brand new to game development. I've only done this for 6 months, and I frankly don't know what I'm doing at all. Um, yeah, at the bottom here you see a bunch of debug. All this debug that you see here, this is not the Godot game engine creating this. This is me. I made a debug manager, and again, after the gameplay, we'll talk about what managers do, but this is all stuff that I've written to help me out. If you know anything about game dev in general, or just development, software development in general, and I'm not a software developer. I'm not by trade. I'm a bartender. Um, the adage is that for every 1 hour of programming or feature adding that you do, it's 3 hours or 6 hours rather of debugging, and it really is like that. Sometimes it's more, and it's far and away the part of the process that I least enjoy. I don't think anybody enjoys debugging, but it is what it is, you know. All right, so we just had our delivery truck drop off some deliveries. You know, that's some beer, that's some spirits. Okay, so you know what you would normally do. There'd be a tutorial, and what we would normally do is probably come over here, and here's our 3 compartment sink, and you know we start out with some dirty glasses, so we would probably wash those. I'm gonna be bad here, and I'm gonna drop it, and boom, cracked it. So there's physics, and the pouring game, and most of all the mini games, all the mini aspects of bartending are all physics based, which I'm proud of because you know, have no idea what I'm doing, but the physics engine in Godot is pretty good. It's been very helpful. Um, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to trigger on purpose the health inspector to come. So I've set it up to pretty much come automatically. I'm going to bring up this little cheat panel that I made. I like to joke that I made this cheat panel for my friend Dallas because he's the biggest cheater that I know. Um, but this probably won't make it to the actual game, or at least I'll hide it in some way. It's really a debug tool, but we're just going to skip to the next day automatically here. And what we're looking for down here in the debug is this line right here. So health inspection scheduled in 20.5 seconds. So there's a random roll, like rolling the die of whether a health inspection will come or not, just like the real world. But right now I have it set to 90%. Sometimes it feels like that in the bartending world, that the health department is, you know, coming 90% of the time and making your life a living hell. But here he is. So this purple line right here, this is it's called A-star tracking. Oh yeah, so this is me. I've, you know, jumped ship, and I'm the health inspector. I'm going to change that portrait and have me wearing a hat. The real health inspectors in New York wear a little New York City hat, so I'll make that portrait eventually. I'm a piss poor artist though. So what the health inspector is doing right now though is they're going through and they're checking for any dirty items on the tables. They're going to check over here in my glass rack sink area and see if there's any dirty dishes. And then they're going to come to my back room here and inspect a little bit back here. That this A-star pathfinding, there's a very common pathfinding algorithm that's used in a lot of game engines and a lot of different video games. It's hard to work with. I need to get better at it for sure. You'll see him knocking his stuff. But he's finishing up his inspection, and there we go. Notice of violation. So I modeled this after the real life New York City Department of Health violations, which I've gotten more than my fair share of. Not that I'm a bad bartender, that my bars were dirty. Far from it. Just the Department of Health likes to give you a violation for anything and everything. Hence why they're the primary enemy of our game. So in this case, we're just going to accept the voluntary closure. Obviously, in real life, you can't bribe the health inspectors. I don't recommend trying. Uh, like I can't even imagine what would happen. And when you don't actually pay a fine like right then and there, that doesn't happen in real life. You go to court, and the fines are more like in the thousands of dollars, not hundreds of dollars. But we're going to accept the voluntary closure. So I just want to show you what this means. So I've made this little animation. Boom, you're closed, and our bar is closed for 2 days. So you can see this little bar is closed button up here. Our bar is closed symbol, and this is just to kind of let us know that we should probably be spending the next couple of days cleaning up our bar so that this doesn't happen again. So here we go into day 2 of the health department closure, and there we go, the game's only enemy, the health department. Okay, part 2 of devlog number 2. This is just for the nerds because I don't think most people want to sit through this kind of tech talk stuff, unless you're a fellow indie game developer or you're an aspiring one, and hopefully I can teach you a couple of things. I thought that for this particular one, I would just kind of go over the overall structure of the Godot engine itself, and then the structure of my project. I really wish that somebody had shown me in the beginning how to structure a project. I still can't find a lot of data on it, or um, a lot of literature on it. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but I've done my absolute best in structuring it with no formal education in Not even a whole ton of tutorials, really, just kind of did my best. But let's go through the engine itself. Okay, so starting from the top left here, these are your nodes. So you have to think of a video game as a series of scenes. Now that could only be just one scene. It could be just, let's say you have that Subway Runner game or whatever. That's just a single scene in which you're running forever, or that could be, like a story-driven game in which there's many different scenes. Um, but in Godot, a scene can be something as granular as a single light. Or for example, we'll look at this right here. Here's a scene where it's my delivery truck. This is the truck that brings your deliveries every day. You can see this gorgeous drawing I did on the side of the truck of some booze bottles and this crazy multicolored rainbow prism polygon. We'll talk about what that is. It's a collision shape. Um, so yeah, this is a good little way of explaining sort of how the overall structure of a video game, especially in Godot, works. But Unity works pretty much in the same exact way. Um, so yeah, we've got a delivery truck. The base of it is this right here, which is an animated sprite. So the animated sprite has different keyframes, and these will play. So we can play it as a little thing right here, and we can see what's going on. Isn't that nice? So this is our little scene. It's a preview of everything. So I'm going to turn off. If you've ever done like an editor like Photoshop, you can hit these little eye buttons and you can hide things that you don't want to see. So like right now, this polygon is kind of annoying me. So I'm just going to hide it for now. I'm going to hide the entire static body 2D, and I'm going to hide this other little blue thing right here, which is a collider. I'm going to hide that as well, just so we got a better look at what's going on here. So you can see here I have all these things: tail light left, tail light right, all these different things, and occluders. So these are, if you see here, if we zoom in, this is an actual light, and when we instance this in the game, we'll see the light actually glow. Likewise, I have headlights in the front, and there are occluders that kind of block the light from going backwards here and just projects the light forward, which you could see in the opening screen at the beginning of the game from section one. Also, you could see the same. I use the same sort of system um, for the inspector, the health inspector, not this inspector. We'll talk about what that inspector does. So yeah, each one of these things are nodes. And if you're used to programming, you can think of a node as a class or a library of code that's been written for you that you don't need to write. You don't need to write every aspect of the animation player. You can just call the animation player with within the script, and you can tell the animation player to do things. You can tell the animation player to do things either programmatically, which we'll get into here when we jump into a script, or you can adjust different settings, and you do that over here on the right hand side on the inspector. So you can tell it like one shot, for instance. That means well, this is kind of unfair because these are things I wrote, but there's a little tool that I wrote up here. But one shot just means play it once. You can tell like the animation, where to be like centered, all sorts of different controls for the sprite frame, the speed of the animation, what frame we're starting on, all sorts of different things. You can do this without having a program, and that's great. It's not that there's no code involved. It's just that code is written for you. It's in the background. It's doing stuff for you. But it is absolutely not enough to make a game. So you always need to do what's called extending. You have to extend the node, which is in just basic programming. You extend classes. That's very, very common. So we click on this little script thing, and we can hit up here, and we can see up here. Let's make this just a little bit bigger. Well, I guess we're not. We'll just hide that. Make that. There we go. Okay, so we can see here class name car extends animated sprite 2D. So what this is saying is that take everything that Godot has written for the animated sprite 2D, which is this standard class, a standard series of scripts and functions that make up an animated sprite 2D. And we're going to extend that. We're going to piggyback off that, and we're going to add our own stuff. And here's all the stuff that we're adding. probably too much stuff because I'm not very efficient. I'm trying to get better, and I feel like I am getting better. But what we're doing is we're saying, okay, now we have a more customized animation. It's more trucky. It's more of a delivery truck animation as opposed to just being just the standard animation of anything. And we tell it what to do based off all these functions here. I'm not going to go into that because it's programming stuff and it's frankly super boring. Um, but we'll get into the nitty gritty of that some other day. Um, you can see here that these are all a bunch of scripts. These are scripts that I have open at any given time. So these are scripts that I'm working on because any single video game is not made up of one giant sheet of music. It is made of lots of small pieces of music that work together to make a symphony, and that symphony is the game. So you don't write one giant monumental program that has every single rule in it. You create tons of little ones, and so often you'll be working on a system like the car system. It might be made up of multiple different scripts, and mine actually is. Um, but I was actually working previously on more of the health inspector stuff, so you can see all the different things that extend the health inspector nodes are all in my scripts here. So this helps you organize all those scripts, so you can kind of keep your project organized in a more acute way. So it's more of like um, keeping things organized at the project level, like the current project that you're working on, as opposed to the entire monolith that is the game. That's done down here. We'll jump to that in a second. So these are all the scripts that you currently have open. You can just close them if you don't. I don't need to see the lighting manager. This manages my lighting. I don't care about it right now. It doesn't really have much to do with the health inspector. Let's close it. Let's clean this up a little bit, right? Same with the navigation manager. I don't really care. I don't want to see it. That doesn't delete it in any way. It just means we're not looking at it. We can always go back and bring it up from here, or we can bring it up from whatever node it may or may not be attached to in the scripts up here. Um, I'll go to my main scene so you can just see like this is just a lot of stuff going on. So this is a 2D representation of the world, more or less. This is the game world, and it's just busy with a lot of different things, and probably looks like absolute gobbledygook. And there's probably better ways of organizing it, but I don't know how. But yeah, these are all of the nodes that make up this scene, and you can see that you can expand them, and they have nodes that are children. So it's a parent-child relationship, which you talk about a lot in programming, because and particularly Godot follows what's called a compositional style of programming. So we favor composition over inheritance is the technical term, where we can create a lot of modular little components in these scenes, instantiate these components into our main scene, and slowly build more and more and more things. We compose it as opposed to having the scripts inherit properties from each other. We'll talk. Well, I'll do another one about another devlog where I talk more about the principles of programming, because I really think that right now with AI, you can get. I use AI a lot in my workflow for programming, not for the art. I think you can get a lot done if you just understand the very basics of programming, and you can be just really efficient if you know how to use AI correctly. But it does take just understanding a tiny bit of programming. I am not a good programmer. I'm a terrible programmer. But I get by because I understand these sort of overarching concepts that really help. So back to our script scene, our script window here. So again, this is all the scripts that you have open. And then this is something that's really handy because every script, every subprogram that makes up a program is made of a series of functions. All that programming really is you state a bunch of variables, like you say, like, okay, like this is the wind can be this strong and the enemy can have this much health, and the water refills your thirst at this value, right? And you generally do that. It just doesn't matter what programming language you're working in. I work in GD script. You could write this in C sharp if you wanted to. You could write it in C++. GD script is essentially an API that sits on top of C++. Like, don't quote me on that, but that's more or less what it's doing. It's just a higher level of C++. Higher level, when we're talking about programming, does not mean like more advanced, it means quite the opposite. It means it's closer to English than it is to machine code. It's more easy for us meat bags to read. So yeah, this is really not that difficult to read. So again, at the top, we have all of our variables. So like in this case, I have a flashlight that points right, a flashlight that points left, a flashlight that points up, and a flashlight that points down. Don't do things this way. This is really inefficient. The right way of doing this would be to take that single flashlight and move it around programmatically, but I'm way too lazy for that, so I slapped this together. So yeah, we're just all of our different variables for our health inspector. This is our health inspector controller. So this controls that health inspector that we saw earlier. This controls how he moves and how he reacts in the game world. So these are all the different variables that we state. And then these are all the different things that you can say. Again, it's in a variable, a var. This is a long variable with a lot of different little options. It's called the dictionary. And it's called that in pretty much every programming language. It's very similar. Then two big things you're always going to see in most video game programming is a ready function, which is kind of like what happens when the script first gets called. And then this one doesn't have it, but you're going to see this a lot in maybe CarGD has it. It does. You'll see a process function. Process and process delta. You will hear delta talked about ad infinitum in programming, in video game programming, because it is, and I'm going to butcher this and everyone's going to yell at me, and that's fine. Games process by frame. I don't mean like frames per second, like your frame rate that you're looking at when you're playing a game. It processes like a physics frame. Um, and delta is how much time has passed, and I'm totally butchering this, within that physics frame. So this is essentially you're telling the game to process all of these things every single frame, or at least attempt to. Pardon me. So as long as this car is instanced in the game, every second that the car is in the game, it will do all of these things. It will figure out if it's stopped and then figure out what to do if it's stopped. It will determine where it's starting and ending. It'll determine velocity. It'll do all these different things, right? All the sort of real-time things that you expect a video game to do happens in process. But going back to the health inspector controller, not everything necessarily needs a process function. Like in this particular case, since we're extending character body 2D, character body 2D has already written that. Godot, the magical people that have made Godot have already created most of the classes within character body 2D that like handle things like movement every second of the gameplay. So it'll mostly handle that. I just need to extend it and not do those minute processing things. So instead, you have a series of functions that are unique to my instance of the character body 2D. So in this case, we have all of the things that you would imagine that a health inspector would do. Turn off all those flashlights, show a flashlight, start the inspection, start doing the dirty glasses inspection, do the lug inspection. So this along this little box here, these are all of your methods or functions. Um, in old school days, I learned how to program in like the early 90s because I'm old as hell. And we just called them functions. I don't really know the difference between methods and functions. Maybe somebody can tell me. I never looked it up. I use them kind of interchangeably, and that's probably wrong. I'm probably going to get yelled at for that. But this is really handy because you can jump around between all of your different methods. These are like the subroutines within your subprogram that create that giant composition, the symphony that becomes the game. This is probably the most granular level of different little things that your scripts do. Writing functions is pretty much what you do all day long as a game developer. Um, and this is a part that I actually enjoy when I get to write functions that work. But 90% of the time they don't, and then I spend 6 hours debugging. So that's that. Going back over to here, so this is getting more 10,000 foot view. So if this is what's going on right now in terms of like more or less visual elements that we can see in this 2D screen are all represented by the nodes here. And then the nodes are extended by scripts that we create custom actions for. And then this is all sort of like the most granular level is the individual functions that are happening right here. We zoom all the way out to the 10,000 foot range and we look at the file system. So this is everything that goes into the symphony. This is every single instrument, every single section of the orchestra. Like we've got the font section of the orchestra, we've got the music section of the orchestra, so the orchestra section of the orchestra. We have all of my sprites, all of our scenes. So this is a quest system, and everyone organizes this differently. And I supremely do not know how to organize things probably correctly, so I did the best that I can. This being a bartending video game, bartending in real life is just about inventory. If you boil down bartending to what it really is, you are just putting one container into another container. That's really what it is at the end of the day, and you're handing that container to somebody. So managing your inventory, like the bottles that are coming in, um, the refrigerators that it goes into, and the liquor well and all that. It's so much. It's so much of the game, right? So that's a folder and it's a world in and of itself. And I try to color code things, although I'm not very good at that. And yeah, so this is all relatively self-explanatory, but this is where all of your assets go that are not programming assets. So your scripts are up here. Your scripts live in here as well, but everything else that makes up a game, the music and the artwork, sounds and everything else, they all live in all these little folders, and you make these folders. None of this kind of comes like this. There are little, startup packages that you can start that have these sorts of like basics built in for you, but in my case I just did everything from scratch because I'm an idiot. Down here you have your debugger. So I deal a lot with my own output. I wrote my own debugger, and I just it's probably maybe not the most efficient way of doing things, but that's how I did them, and it works for me. And I spend a lot of time staring at this and crying. And then down here you've got a lot of other forms. So we won't go into this in um, this particular devlog because these are really case dependent when you use these or see these. But in the debugger itself, there's a lot of crazy stuff you can do with a debugger. I mean, some people don't like the Godot debugger. I don't have enough exposure to other debuggers. So to me, I am just blown away by the amount you can see, like how much CPU and GPU usage is being taken up by different scripts firing at different times. It's pretty wild. It's pretty cool. This is a signal lens. I want to go over this another time, but I don't want to. I don't want to make this go too long. It's already going too long as it is. So I just want to go over, lastly, the inspector here. So going back to a node up here, let's pick a good node that makes sense to a lot of people. What will resonate with a lot of people? You know what? We're going to pick the streetlight node. Streetlight Avenue left. Okay. Ch- ch- check, 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 check. Wow, my microphone just magically shut itself off, which is awesome. Streetlight Avenue left. So we can see this in the game world itself. Streetlight Avenue left. Where are you? I don't even know. Here we go. Streetlight Avenue left is right here. So you can see here that it's made up of all these other child nodes, and you see this little thing right here. This means that this is in another scene. So I created a scene that is just a streetlight, and then I take that and it has all the different little components that it needs, the point light, the collider, all the different things that it needs to be a fun little street light living its best life. And then I take that and I can instantiate in the scene, and I can instantiate as many of them as I want. Look, there's another one. There's this little buddy down here. So Streetlight Avenue left, this is a Sprite 2D node, but let's go to its point light, which is the light that's up here that's actually casting the light. And this was where the inspector is great, right? So you can just modify things to your heart's content. Like I can take this texture scale and I can adjust it, and you can see in real time that it'll mess things up in the real world, which is great because you don't have to do all this stuff programmatically. It's limited in what it can do. You can't create an entire game on its own from just modifying things on the inspector and not touching any code at all. I would love to see someone try. I'm sure there's someone out there that's done it, but you can do a tremendous amount of things without having to jump into the code. So it's the inspector is really a friendly little item in Godot. Unity has something similar as well. I think they call theirs inspector too, but um, it's something that you will deal with a lot if you get into game dev. So that is it. That is the all the major panels in Godot. I'm sure I did a terrible job of explaining that, but that's what I do. A terrible job. Thanks for listening.